Videos like this are made possible by viewers like you.
5G vaccine, non-human DNA, little robots in the cloud. Bill and Melinda Gates, literally slaves to the system. Extremely concerning, and everyone should be concerned. Things will not go back to normal. Why?
You know these clips on Facebook that people just sort of share around? Conspiracy theories that nobody fact checks and they just sort of get shared and shared. And that's how the truth died. Right, well, let's talk about this. Hey everyone, if you're new here, I'm Andy Fellows and I make videos on cult skepticism and making sense of life after New Age spirituality, and apparently I also debunk conspiracy theories now. If you're interested in a more skeptical and grounded approach to New Age spirituality and apparently conspiracy theories, then why not subscribe to the channel and hit the bell? First things first, I know very little about the person that I'm responding to in this video. I'm really just responding to what she's saying in the clip that you'll see in a second. I want to get that out of the way up front. I've done a little bit of research on her just so that I know what's going on and who we're talking about here. But please bear in mind that I am not an expert on any of this stuff. I've tried to look up this stuff to sort of debunk what's in the video to make sense of it, and I'm putting this together in this video for you to enjoy. Please check out all my sources. They're in the description below so you can read up on the stuff that I'm sharing here and make up your own mind. However, there will be some claims in this video that I don't really feel need to be double checked. It's fairly obvious that they're nonsense. That said, let's get on with this.
Okay, my name is Dr. Christiane Northup. I'm a board-certified OBGYN physician trained at Dartmouth Medical School, Tufts New England Medical Center. I'm a former clinical professor of OBGYN at the University of Vermont College of Medicine. I'm the author of 3 New York Times best-selling books, including Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, The Wisdom of Menopause, and Goddesses Never Age. I've done 8 highly successful public television specials. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show 10 different times, and all the numerous TV shows like Dr. Oz and Rachel Ray and NBC Nightly News and all of the rest of it, kind of straddling the world between holistic medicine and conventional OBGYN. And my entire career really has been about teaching women everything that can go right with their bodies and how to make that their experience.
Right, so I can appreciate the need to list your achievements so that you can sort of build credibility and people start to trust you a little bit, but literally that entire laundry list of that's her entire CV she's just reeled off there by the sounds of it. To me, that sort of screams, I want you to take my word for what I'm about to say. The subtext being what I'm about to say is unbelievable nonsense.
This COVID vaccine, can you tell what we do know about it and what you, from your experience, fear for the people that may take it?
Yes, there's never been a vaccine like this. It's an RNA vaccine.
So she's starting out strong with the RNA vaccine thing. Apparently RNA vaccines are new, and this vaccine, if it works, will be the first of its kind to work, but it won't be the first of its kind. We have got other RNA vaccines, they just don't work yet, as far as I'm aware. If you're the kind of person that's suspicious of new stuff, and I feel like we all are to some extent, then that might be enough to get you going, and I think it's understandable to be wary, but Northrup's claims here go beyond wary, way beyond wary, I think. And why is an OBGYN being consulted for the safety of a vaccine for the coronavirus pandemic? That strikes me as strange. This is not her lane, at all, and she's about to go full on Deepak. Now, if that is not enough to make you double take, I don't know what will.
It is what's called a trans infection. It will fundamentally change people's DNA.
One of the things that struck me when I was watching this video was that because I don't know that much about a lot of the stuff that she's talking about, I probably know about as much as the average person watching this stuff. If I wasn't coming at it from a more skeptical point of view, it might get me going. It might make me sort of freak out a little bit. So to put this one to bed, I reached out to a friend of mine, Navadia, who's a fellow YouTube person and knows a little bit more about this than I do. You might remember Navadia from a video I did previously debunking some of Ralph Smart's conspiracy claims, which I've linked in the description below if you want to check that one out after this video. But anyway, I messaged Navadia and here is what she said about this claim. So I said, hey, quick question, and you can just answer yes or no if you want. Does Pfizer's mRNA vaccine fundamentally change people's DNA? Now, Navadia laughed a lot and then said, no is the answer. If yes were the answer, then every time we get infected with an RNA virus, we'd mutate. So Navadia told me to fact check her, and I did, and it turns out she's right. If you're injected with an mRNA vaccine, your DNA isn't going to be fundamentally changed. It's almost like these people are just making this stuff up. Like, where do they get this stuff from?
What I don't like about it, even more than the usual thing about the toxic metals that are in vaccines that make our bodies literally into an antenna with 5G.
I'm sorry, this antennas for 5G stuff is ridiculous nonsense. Categorical, ridiculous nonsense. It's been debunked multiple times by multiple different people. And it's most of the time, with obviously the addition of the pandemic factor in people not liking 5G, most of the criticisms about 5G were present, as far as I'm aware, with 4G and 3G as well. Like, it's just this kind of weird paranoia about new technology and new things that people can't seem to shake. But we did the same thing with TVs, and we did the same thing with books. It seems to be a very human response to things. And yet, in this day and age, with the evidence and the science available to us through a quick Google search, it's baffling that we still believe this stuff. It's baffling that people still go on the internet and so boldly say these things. I feel like what Northup is doing here in the claims that she's making is a classic kind of conspiracy theory thing when it comes to like vaccines and microchips and all that kind of stuff, is that she's agitating these sort of unspoken fears about our internal space, our internal world being violated. And because that internal world is seen as sort of sacred by a lot of religious or spiritual people, and it's seen as at least private by people in the English speaking world in general, the idea of that being invaded, especially by some sort of government mandated protocol, it can be quite an uncomfortable thought. It's quite a scary thought. But like this idea of mandatory vaccinations, they're not, that idea is not coming from anyone but these sort of more paranoid conspiracy theories. And so it's sort of building on these fears and turning it into something that in this kind of a way can be shared on the internet and everybody can get up in arms about. I mean, it is fear-mongering trash, really, isn't it? I feel like if Northup has to say this kind of stuff, maybe she could just keep it to a sort of wine mum book club sort of a situation rather than spreading it on the internet and just increasing just mass hysteria and paranoia around these things. It's needless.
This one has the usual non-human DNA, like, monkeys, maybe fetal cells, pigs, whatever. And so it begins to make us what's called chimers, CHIMER, introducing non-human DNA into our bodies.
So I think she means chimeras rather than chimers. I don't know if she thought Splice was a documentary, or also non-human DNA like monkeys, fetal cells, and pigs. Can someone tell me what's wrong with that sentence, please?
What is worse, though, is that there is a patent and work that they've done at MIT to make a dye. And the dye is called luciferase.
Okay, so I looked up luciferase, and this is an interesting one, right? And as we go through this, you'll see why I love this claim so much. It's beautifully strange, okay? And it seems to, as with most conspiracy theories, be based on a sort of implicit fear or some kind of play on words or just something that people just see and go, oh, and that's it. And from then on, they believe it, and that's that. So first things first, what Northup kind of gets wrong here is that it is not a dye, but it's used in dyes, as far as I know. And luciferase is a class of oxidative enzymes which produce bioluminescence. And while I did have to do a little bit of research on this to make sense of it, do you know how I know that part? One Google search, literally just one Google search. You can type in luciferase and you find the Wikipedia page which explains exactly what it is. Now, what I don't understand is why these people can't do that themselves and why people like me end up having to do it and make videos about it, but I guess this is the world we live in now. Anyway, you find luciferase in like mushrooms, jellyfish, fireflies, and some beetles, among other things. You get luciferin, which is the light-emitting molecule, and then you get luciferase, which is the enzyme. The enzyme catalyzes the oxidation of the luciferin. If you know what that means, kudos, because I'm only just getting it. Apparently, though, it's all very normal and occurs perfectly harmlessly inside glowworms all the time. The name luciferase is taken from the Latin lucifer, meaning light bearer, because of, the bioluminescence, right? And while the name is enough to get the scientifically illiterate wives of pastors the world over shivering in their ankle-length skirts, it may actually not be, would you believe, a clear as day oath to serve eternally the literal fucking devil. So Northup's claim that this dye was invented and named luciferase, it sounds worse than it is. When she says it, it sounds worse than it is. And it's kind of misleading as well. If you're enjoying this video, by the way, please hit the like button.
And under a light, you'd be able to see who was vaccinated, who wasn't. And the deal is to store your biometric information, because this vaccine will have nanoparticles, nanocrystalline particles that are actually little robots.
This hurts my brain a little bit, but 10 out of 10 for creativity here. The way she kind of emphasizes nano here, again, makes it seem worse than it is. But to you and I who aren't developing this technology, the word nano effectively just means mini, right? It just means small. And I don't know if you've ever seen a syringe, Northup, but in order for something to get out of the syringe, to get out of the needle, it needs to be quite nano. So MIT have developed something which does track vaccination history, but this is where we need to put our nuance glasses on, because we can't let our interpretation of things and our fear of new and mysterious things make us think that something is happening when it's not. The intention is to use this vaccination history tracking in developing countries, which is a term I abhor, so that people who don't have a more elaborate filing system or access to cloud storage are able to have their vaccination history tracked to keep people healthy. Now, to people like you and I in the first world, the idea of tracking your vaccination history or putting something under your skin is kind of unnerving. It's kind of it seems unnecessary. It seems like, why do we need to do that, right? But in a developing country, if you and everyone you know is sick or dying and you want to keep yourself, your family, your kids safe, it's not much of a toss-up between not have something under your skin and potentially not have your vaccination history tracked and thus not be safe from the viruses or the other illnesses that are going around, and have something under your skin, keep you, your family, your children safe. It's something that these people are going to be more willing to accept, because it's just a more effective way of tracking things if you don't have a filing system, especially where things like illiteracy are concerned. If people aren't able to read, they aren't able to keep track of their own paperwork, that's going to complicate things as well. I feel like a huge part of the reason that people are suspicious of vaccines in our sort of first world societies is that we're so used to not having to deal with diseases which vaccines have helped us to eradicate, that we are in such a position where we can say things without really being faced with the consequences of not having vaccines, like vaccines are bad. Whereas if we weren't enjoying the consequences of successfully having used vaccines, then we wouldn't be sitting here saying vaccines are bad. We'd be saying, give us anything and stop us dying, please. I feel like we're at a point now where we've eradicated enough shit that we kind of can have the cheek to turn around and say things to the tune of health is a default, health is the natural state of the human, when that's actually not the case. It's not for everyone and not all the time. We enjoy the quality of life that we do and the length of it that we do because of evidence-based medicine and scientific advances like vaccines. That's just the way that it is. I feel like we're in a strange position where we're enjoying the benefits of something that we're now turning against and saying are bad because of our ignorance of how positively these things have affected us.
And they, like little antennas, and they will have the ability to take your biometric data, not only your vaccine record, but your breathing, your heart rate, your activities, sexual activities, drugs that you're taking, where you travel, all of that, and then take that data and store it in the cloud.
So the intention with this device is to store all the information necessary on the device rather than in the cloud. Also, when we say the cloud, I feel like we're playing into this sort of visionary utopian sort of tech circle jerk of the idea of it being sort of out there and sort of some futuristic thing. It is stored on physical drives. I feel like we need to ground that a little bit, because again, what's happening here, I think, with a lot of Northup's claims is that what she's saying is appealing to this idea of things being out of your control, things being imposed on you, certain privacies and certain things that you feel are necessary for you to feel autonomous as a human are being taken away without you realizing it, which is a very normal conspiracy theory trope, right? That said, if you're worried about your biometric data being like tracked and stored in the cloud and stuff, you don't need an implant for that, Karen. Look at your Fitbit and any other sort of smart devices in your house, like your TV, Alexa, your phone, tablet, all these kinds of things. They are tracking your data. They are storing your data. They are sending it off, and they're sharing it with other third parties, and they're building an aggregate avatar of you on the internet. There's a documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, which scratches the surface of that. At the end of the day, the end of privacy doesn't come from an implant from Microsoft. It comes from Microsoft and Facebook and the G word companies and others storing your data and sharing that and using that to create behavioral models for the attempted behavioral modification. It's called surveillance capitalism. Look it up, man. The truth's out there, man. And this is shit they're already doing. You know, it's not some sort of scary big plan out there. It's a scary big thing happening now, right? Also concern about like the government and pharmaceutical companies and these sort of tech people. It's understandable. I feel like generally trust has been eroded over, you know, the last sort of 10, 15 years or so, especially in the government, especially with like pharmaceutical companies and stuff as well. Unfortunately, they do tend to operate like any other sort of company, despite them being there to produce medicine to help people stay alive. They do seem to operate very much like other companies, you know, and that is disappointing. But it is a reality here that we do need to consider. So I think that some suspicion of these companies, some suspicion of the government, and maybe things that aren't so above board happening from time to time, you know. What I'm saying is conspiracies do happen, but the majority of conspiracy theories tend to be based on a grain of truth and nothing more. So it's always worthwhile fact checking these kinds of things rather than just, you know, believing what some random saying on the internet. Anyway, next clip.
What's even more concerning is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on March 26, 2020, applied for a patent number 060606, to take that biometric data, give you a barcode, and connect each of us to cryptocurrency.
So patent 060606 does exist, but it's not anything to do with injectable nanoparticles or anything like that. It is to do with cryptocurrency, though. Something to bear in mind, I think, is that in the US in particular, you know, just because a patent has been filed, it doesn't mean that that thing has been invented. It doesn't mean that that thing is a viable invention, you know, or you know, financially, you know, commercially viable. And often what happens is people file patents when they get an idea that's sort of different enough from other ideas so that they've got a bit of legal protection in the event that they do make it commercially viable. And people game this system as well. People sort of come up with ideas and just go out there and just file for patents so that when someone does invent something, they can be like, oh, no, I got the patent first, give me money. It's a whole thing. Also, what I really love here, and this is probably my favorite part of this whole clip, is when Northup says patent number 060606, the host, she sort of shakes her head. Like, she can't believe this stuff. Look, the nerve of these people. Patents with a devil number in it. Do they think we're stupid? Oh, I love it.
So that we would become literally slaves to the system. Like everything, it would be the end of privacy, the end of freedom, because who gets the data? Who uses the data? And what do they do with it?
Now, I do need to say that the last thing that Northup said there sounds a little bit like something that Shoshana Zuboff said a number of times in her book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, which is worth a read. And I do think it's a valid concern, but as this is a conspiracy theory debunking video, I'm not just going to go off on surveillance capitalism any more than I already have. I'll just leave that there.
This patent to connect the vaccinated to cryptocurrency, making all humans a commodity, is extremely concerning, and everyone should be concerned.
The patent isn't connected to a vaccine. It's not at all, not even slightly. So Northup seems to be like Gish galloping through a series of baseless claims here, each filled with more conspiracy theory dog whistles than the last. She's kind of doing this like classic conspiracy theory thing of saying like, this thing exists. And then she's like misrepresenting it and doing that in a way that plays into people's fears and worries and lack of trust in the powers that be, which is, you know, persistently being eroded. included. I mean, David Icke, he's made a whole career on this kind of a grift, right? I mean, it's lucrative, but it's nothing new. Also, while we're on this, one thing that I had said to me in response to my initial debunking of this for the person that sent it to me initially was, why would Northup want to ruin her reputation making claims like this? Why, you know, she's as she's so very proud of all of her accolades as she listed at the beginning, why would she want to put her reputation on the line in coming out with something like this? Now, my knee-jerk reaction to that, and I think that it is, you know, no less true for its knee-jerkiness, is that the sort of conspiracy theory circuit is hotting up money-wise at the moment in 2020 with, you know, on account of all the conspiracy theories going around. People are interested. People want to hear this stuff. There's clearly a market there, and I think with Northup and others like her, and I don't know if this is true of Northup, but you know, many people I've seen, what we're looking at here is not somebody ruining their reputation for the sake of one shitty conspiracy theory. What they seem to be doing is building a reputation on a number of baseless conspiracy theories. This is not just I'm coming out and I'm blowing the whistle. This is a building of a reputation with a whole other demographic. And I think that we think of it as like this is some kook that's coming out and saying stuff. But when you think about it and the growing audience for this kind of content at the moment, there is an audience for it. There are people, unfortunately, that want to hear baseless paranoid claims. It is a growing market. It is something that people are interested in hearing, and so we're not really seeing someone throwing their reputation away. We're seeing them building a reputation with a whole other demographic, which, yeah, okay, is making not the most credible claims, but there is an audience there. And I think with the internet being the way that it is these days, you know, you get clicks, you get views. Obviously, there's been a bit of an issue with censorship with these kinds of claims and stuff. But you know, if you can do something that skirts that line, that you're able to keep up for long enough with your conspiracy theories on social media, on your websites and stuff, you're golden. But honestly, with Northup, and again, I don't want to go after her or anything, you know, I want to be fair and stuff. I think looking at her blog in particular, it does look like she believes this stuff. It does look like this is not just a one-time thing for her. This is something that she's been going on for a while, you know. If you look at some of the blog posts that she's put up to do with detoxifying the pineal gland or something like that, yeah, she's not new to this sort of, as she said, you know, she's straddling the world between sort of holistic medicine, if you like, and the OBGYN stuff. So she is in this sort of med natural health sort of realm already, which is not known for its, you know, evidence-basedness. And to her, this is probably, you know, her taking the bullet. This is her sort of going out there and risking it all to share this dark truth that's hidden in plain sight that she's spotted or that she's heard about, you know, somewhere. And I think the most important point there is that this is a growing culture of like inane fiction. We're not looking here at what we used to be looking at when someone like this came out. You know, when David Icke came out and started talking about all this stuff and saying he was Jesus after he'd been like a sports presenter or something way back when, he was just trashed by the media. But these days, that's not what we're looking at. We're not looking at the same thing. There's way more people interested in this stuff now. It is a growing subculture, unfortunately.
Given that this is a virus from which 99.9% of people recover. So I would ask, why do we need anything like this? Because it goes far beyond those pandemics of old, smallpox and so on. This is very different. The plan here is to vaccinate the entire world. And the narrative that we're being sold is things will not go back to normal until everyone is vaccinated.
So the COVID recovery rate is not 99.9%. It is 97 to 99.75%. Just saying. And of course, that number is going to vary from location to location as well. We're looking at like the average age of the population, the obesity rates, the quality of healthcare, quality of the government response to the pandemic, and, you know, whether or not the president's a fucking moron. All those things are going to factor in. I feel like this suspicion of vaccines does require some more substantial evidence to not be baseless paranoid nonsense. But just to be clear, we don't all need to be vaccinated to stop the spread of the virus. As far as I'm aware, we just need to have it so that more people are vaccinated than aren't by a big enough margin to stop the spread, you know, as soon as it's proven to be safe and effective. So please, if you feel the inclination to chat shit on the internet, don't. and try to double check and verify what you're thinking or concerned about. Try and prove yourself wrong if at all possible. So when I sent my initial debunking of this to the person that sent me the video in the first place, they asked me a question, which was, what if she's right though? So I'll leave you with the same answer I gave them. If she is, it's probably not on purpose. I'm Andy Fellows. I'm here pretty much every Thursday. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. And if you enjoyed this video today and you want to help support the channel, then the best way to do that is through Patreon. There's a link to that in the description below. Otherwise, please be kind and ask good questions, and I'll see you in the next one.